The HaBayt, and it's 2 days before Tisha B'Av, and we're remembering a question the two princes of Judah sent from Babylon to the land of Israel to Cohanim who had returned, because at that time they had begun to build the temple, and they were wondering, do we still need to fast? And remember, these emissaries were representing people in Babylon, two princes. And the Cohanim didn't know the answer, so they asked Hashem. And Hashem gave an answer to them. And Hashem said, speak to the people of the land. That is, of the land of Israel. Not really directly to those who were in Babylon. Since, if they didn't come back at this time, it should be directed toward those who are still here in the land. And God said, basically, when you fasted in the 5th and 7th month, did you not fast for yourself? When you eat and drink, do you not do it for yourself? It wasn't for His honor, and that's what God's concerned about. And He says, and then He started to speak and say about what did He was saying before the temple was destroyed. What was He speaking to the people, to the prophets? And Hashem said, this is what He was speaking. Judge with truthful justice and perform kindness and mercy one to another. Do not oppress the widow or the orphan or the stranger or the poor man, and do not think evil one another in your hearts. That's the thing that Hashem wanted in those days. He's not concerned about whether you're fasting or not. It's how you are treating one another. That is everything to Hashem. And since He says you didn't listen in those days, the temple was destroyed. But then Hashem continues to speak comfort to those who had returned from Babylon. And He said, thus says Hashem, I have become zealous with great zeal on behalf of Zion, and I have become zealous with great wrath on her enemies. In other words, God is very angry with our enemies who have been hurting us, because He has zeal for Zion. We're on Mount Zion. We're on Zion, literally right now. That's the HaBayt. And because of that, Hashem is going to deal with our enemies. And He continues, thus says Hashem, I have returned to Zion, and I have made my dwellings in the midst of Jerusalem. And Jerusalem will be called the city of truth, and the mountain of Hashem of hosts, the holy mountain, Har HaKodesh. Hashem was saying He's returning to His people, and He's dwelling in the midst of Zion right now. That's what He was saying, because Hashem's presence dwells in His people, and when they're coming home, even if the temple wasn't built, He was saying, I dwell in the midst of Jerusalem, in the midst of His people, because the sages have taught that the return of the people to Zion is the return of the divine presence to Zion. And in the return of His people is the return of Hashem. And He was saying that, hey, I'm in Zion now. And to those emissaries that came from Babylon, Hashem was basically saying, I'm here now. And I'm in the midst. And I'm going to have mercy. And I'm very angry at those who are oppressing my people. And because of this, we know now that when Hashem's house is being built, regardless of the conditions from which it is being built, Hashem's blessing will be upon it. That's why the second temple, even though it was a small group of Jews, 5% approximately, that came back from Babylon, and some even call them a ragtag type of group, but they weren't in God's eyes, because they came home. Hashem built a temple. It stood for 420 years, longer than King Solomon's. It became so glorious under King Herod when he refurbished it. It became more glorious in appearance than even King Solomon's. In other words, Hashem is with those who come back, and He helps. He's in our midst even now. Hashem's divine presence is here, and He says, my house will be built in it. And And that's the message. It's about Hashem's house. It's about His honor. It's about the place of His great name. And that His name is sanctified when we care for our own, the widow, the orphan, the poor, the stranger. God's name is sanctified in His people, and He dwells in our midst. And that is what we need to strive for, because we are the example to the world for God, and He takes joy in His children. And so I want to thank you for listening. So all the best.